You just tapped your credit card at the coffee shop and felt that little buzz of approval. You walked away feeling like a responsible adult using secure technology. Exclude ever wonder if that little gold chip actually protects you the way the banks promised? Today, I'll explain why your credit card chip isn't as hack-proof as everyone said it was, like you're 5 years old. By the end, you'll understand what hackers can actually do with chip cards. You'll know why banks let you think you are perfectly safe, and whether you should actually be worried. Here's what happened back in the early 2000s when credit card fraud was spinning out of control. Criminals were skimming magnetic stripes at gas stations and sketchy ATMs like it was a full-time job. Those black magnetic stripes on the back of your card? They're just sitting there with all your card info ready to copy. It's like writing your password on a sticky note and slapping it on your debit card. So the credit card industry came up with a solution: EMV chips. Those little gold squares that make you wait 3 extra seconds at checkout. The promise was simple: total security from fraud. These chips create a unique code for every single transaction. Even if a hacker intercepts it, that code is useless for the next purchase. And honestly, for a while, it worked really well. Fraud from cloned cards dropped hard. Criminals couldn't just copy your card at a gas pump and go on a shopping spree anymore. The chip made that old-school scam basically obsolete. Banks threw a little victory party. Everyone felt safer and stopped asking questions. The problem is, we assumed the chip was perfect, unbreakable, the final boss of credit card security. But the second you think something is unbreakable, someone with too much time at a laptop takes that as a personal challenge. So what's the actual flaw hackers discovered in these supposedly perfect chips? It's not that the chip is bad at making those unique codes, because it does that part perfectly. The problem is in the conversation between your card, the payment terminal, and your bank. Imagine you're passing notes in class. You write a note to your friend asking if you can borrow their homework. Your friend writes back, no. But someone in between intercepts both notes. He tells you your friend said yes and tells your friend you said never mind. Everyone thinks the conversation went fine, but he just made the whole thing up. That's basically what happens in a man-in-the-middle attack on chip cards. A hacker puts a tiny device between your card and the terminal. Your card says, here's my unique code. Did the bank approve this? The hacker's device says, yep, totally approved, even though your bank actually said no. The terminal says, did the card agree to this charge? The hacker's device says, absolutely, even though your card never confirmed anything. Both sides think everything's fine. The transaction goes through, and nobody realizes they just got scammed. This isn't some movie hacker typing furiously in a dark room. This is organized crime with actual equipment. We're talking modified payment terminals that look completely normal but have extra hardware tucked inside. Or fake card readers that sit on top of real ones at ATMs. The device intercepts the signals, rewrites them in real time, and lets the transaction sail through even though it should have been declined. It's sophisticated. It's expensive to set up. This is the kind of fraud that requires a team, a budget, and someone who actually knows what they're doing. Here's where it gets interesting. Security researchers discovered this flaw years ago. They published papers about it. They demonstrated it at conferences. The credit card industry basically said, yeah, we know, but it's really hard to pull off in real life, so don't worry about it. Which is technically true. This attack requires physical access to payment terminals, specialized knowledge, and equipment that costs thousands of dollars. It's not scalable the way old-school card skimming was. But the flaw exists because the system doesn't properly verify that everyone in the conversation is telling the truth. It's a trust problem. Your card trusts the terminal trusts your card. And that tiny gap of blind trust is exactly where the attack lives. Now, before you panic and start paying for everything in crumpled dollar bills, let's talk about what this actually means for you. First, chip cards are still way better than magnetic stripes. Magnetic stripe fraud was easy, cheap, and everywhere. Chip card fraud is rare, expensive, and requires criminal expertise most people don't have. You're significantly safer with a chip than without one. Second, if fraud does happen, you're almost definitely covered. In the US, your liability for unauthorized charges is capped at $50, and most banks just waive it entirely. You're not on the hook for some hacker's shopping spree. The bank eats it, so your money is safe even if your card isn't perfectly secure. But here's what bugs me. The banks and credit card companies sold us chip cards like they were the end of fraud. Forever. Done. Problem solved. They didn't say, hey, this is way better but not perfect, and there's still a small window for sophisticated attacks we haven't quite figured out how to close yet. because that doesn't fit on a press release. The truth is, chip cards were never about making fraud impossible. They were about making fraud expensive and difficult enough that most criminals would give up. It's like putting a better lock on your front door. It won't stop a truly determined burglar with power tools, but it'll stop the opportunist who's just trying doorknobs. This matters because we've been trained to trust technology we don't understand. The chip looks official. It's embedded in the card. It does a little computer handshake every time you use it, so we assume it must be bulletproof. But technology is designed by humans, and humans make mistakes. Sometimes those mistakes are tiny cracks that don't matter until someone figures out how to wedge them open. The EMV chip flaw isn't going to ruin your life, but it's a reminder that secure and perfect aren't the same thing, even when banks use them interchangeably in their marketing. So what can you actually do about this? Honestly, not much on your end. This isn't a be more careful situation. You can't outsmart a modified payment terminal just by being vigilant. The fix has to come from the industry. Better encryption between cards and terminals. Stronger verification that both sides of the conversation are legit. Some countries are already rolling out updates to close this gap, but it's slow because upgrading payment infrastructure is like trying to change the tires on a car while it's still driving. What you can do is check your statements. Not obsessively, but regularly enough that you'd notice if someone bought a jet ski in Florida while you were sitting on your couch eating cereal. Most fraud gets caught because someone looked at their bank app and said, "I definitely didn't spend $600 at a gas station in Nevada." The faster you catch it, the faster it gets fixed. You can also use your bank's fraud alerts if they offer them. Most banks will text you for unusual purchases. It's free, it's automatic, and it catches problems before they get worse. Here's the bigger picture. Every security system is a trade-off between convenience and protection. Chip cards are more secure than swipes, but they're slower. Contactless tap is faster than inserting the chip, but it opens different risks. There's no perfect solution. There's just a series of decisions about which risks we're willing to live with. The credit card industry decided that chip cards with a small vulnerability to sophisticated attacks were better than magnetic stripes with a giant vulnerability to anyone with a card skimmer. And honestly, they were probably right. But they could have been more honest about it. They could have said, "This is a huge improvement, but security is always evolving, and we're going to keep working on it." Instead, they acted like the problem was solved forever. This isn't just about credit cards. Your phone's fingerprint scanner? More secure than a 4-digit PIN, but not unbreakable. Your car's keyless entry? Convenient, but hackers have figured out how to amplify the signal from your keys sitting in your house. Two-factor authentication on your email? Way better than just a password. But if someone gets your phone number, they can sometimes intercept those codes. Nothing is perfect. Everything is just harder or easier to break. The future of payment security is probably going to involve biometrics and tokenization. That means your actual card number never leaves your phone or your bank. Instead, the merchant gets a temporary token that only works for that one transaction. Some payment apps already do this. Apple Pay and Google Pay create unique tokens for every purchase. Your card number never touches the merchant's system. If someone hacks the coffee shop's payment records, they get a bunch of useless tokens instead of actual card numbers. That's the direction things are headed. But it'll take years to fully replace chip cards everywhere. And even then, there will be new vulnerabilities we haven't thought of yet. To recap, chip cards create unique codes for every transaction, which makes old-school cloning basically impossible. The flaw is in the conversation between your card and the terminal. Hackers can intercept and fake approvals using specialized equipment. This requires expensive gear and expertise, so it's not common, but it's real. You're protected from liability if fraud happens, so your money is safe even if the system isn't perfect. And the credit card industry oversold chip cards as unbreakable, when they're really just way harder to break. So here's the real question. If the people selling us security can't be honest about its limits, how are we supposed to trust them the next time they promise something is completely safe?